to a place that I've read about in many, many books. It is actually supposed to be one of the most haunted places in Pennsylvania. And I actually came on a good day, because it seems as though I have this whole place to myself. In fact, if you can hear that behind me, it might be a little bit of a giveaway as to where I am. We are today in the historic Fort Mifflin of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Preliminary walkthrough on my own, and I've already felt and had a few weird things happen, so it just dawned on me, maybe this would be a good time to make a video, so let's try it out and see if anything happens. Fort Mifflin. It's had a few names in its history. Also known as Fort Island Battery and Mud Island Fort, it may most importantly be remembered as the fort that saved America. Back in the fall of 1777, it was the site of the largest bombardment of the Revolutionary War, as British War General William Howe attempted to make his way up the Delaware River to Philadelphia to restock on much-needed supplies after winning the battles of Brandywine and Germantown. And while Philadelphia may have been held by the British, the surrounding areas, most importantly Fort Mifflin and Fort Mercer, were held by the Continental Army. This mission would send Howe and his men directly into hostile territory, and the bloody battles began. For nearly 6 weeks, the American forces were able to keep the British at bay, but finally, after nearly 300 casualties of the 400 men garrisoned at Fort Mifflin, something had to give. The remaining survivors set fire to the fort to prevent the British from capturing it, and set off to join forces with their comrades in Fort Mercer, leaving only their flag flying in an act of defiance. While technically this could be considered a defeat, the efforts made at Fort Mifflin stalled the British Army long enough for General George Washington to rally his troops in Valley Forge, ultimately leading to the American Army getting the upper hand and turning the tide of the Revolutionary War. This would not be the end of things for Fort Mifflin, though. After being rebuilt in 1798, it would be involved in battles during the War of 1812, be used as a Confederate prison during the Civil War, and serve as ammunition storage during both World Wars and the Korean War. Perhaps it was all the death and violence that took place during the Revolutionary War. Maybe the sorrows of the people imprisoned and executed on the grounds. Whatever the cause may be, many spirits seem to be attached to this fort. It has several well-known and heavily experienced phantoms on the grounds. The second floor of the barracks is said to be visited regularly by a spirit known as the lamplighter. He was a man who in life would light the oil lamps every night at dusk. Sometimes, when it begins to get dark, he can be seen walking the balcony, long pole in hand, with a dim light flickering at the end, continuing his duties well into the afterlife. In the casemates, many other apparitions are encountered, thought to be the unrest spirits of the Confederate soldiers held prisoner here during the Civil War, but there is one in particular said to make himself known the most. He is truly the most disturbing one to encounter. He is known simply as the Faceless Man. The Faceless Man is thought to be the spirit of a Civil War soldier. Billy Howe was his name. Billy was considered a war criminal and was convicted of the murder of his superior and the desertion of his duties. He was the only man executed by hanging in the fort, and before his execution, his head was placed in a black bag as a mark of shame. As a result, his spirit is now a vengeful and sinister one. When encountered, he tends to have a mean demeanor, frightening people with disembodied growls and aggressive shouts. But the truly terrifying thing is his appearance. People who have encountered him report a tall man in ragged clothing who appears like a normal, solid person, save for one gruesome detail: a black, gaping hole where his facial features should be. Fort Mifflin is also home to another apparition who isn't shy about making her presence known. In fact, her antics have resulted in Philadelphia police being called to the fort on a few occasions. She is simply known as the Screaming Lady. The Screaming Lady is thought to be the spirit of a woman named Elizabeth Pratt, a neighbor of the fort, whose daughter fell in love with an officer stationed there. Elizabeth, for unknown reasons, greatly disapproved of her daughter's choice in lover, so much so that she disowned her and threw her out of her home. She would not see the error of her ways until it was already too late. Shortly after throwing her out, Elizabeth's daughter contracted dysentery and passed away. Despite the fact that she disowned her, Elizabeth was shattered by her daughter's passing. Consumed with grief and unable to cope with the guilt, she took her own life by hanging herself near the officers' quarters. To this day, her disembodied screams can be heard echoing throughout the fort, as well as appearing in the audio recordings of ghost hunters on investigations. She is the most heard specter of Fort Mifflin. Walking these hallowed grounds, one feels a variety of things. You can feel the history of the old buildings as you gaze upon them. But, in the darkened corners, you can feel an unwelcome foreboding. You can feel the gaze of unseen eyes all around you. And you can feel the presence of the spirits of Fort Mifflin. It's just been nonstop this whole time here. Been all these helicopters and airplanes and everything just kind of flying around. Fort Mifflin, of course, is located directly behind the Philadelphia airport, so it is to be expected you'll hear all kinds of strange things like that loud. But as far as going inside the fort itself, this is one of the first rooms. It seems to be a bar or mess hall of some sort. I'm sorry, I could be entirely butchering what these rooms are, what they were meant for, because I haven't entirely read the historic aspects of this just yet. But it's definitely a very interesting spot. But immediately catches my attention in this place, specifically this room. It's this mirror. I don't know why, but something is just drawing me to it. Very strange about it. I don't know if it's the skull, or the fact that it's just a mirror inside of a purportedly very haunted location. But I don't know if you can hear that. Something is banging like crazy on this pipe, it would seem. Huh. That was really weird. It's not good right now, but we were just checking out that mirror over there and talking about how strange it is and all kinds of weird things, and I was just started on this pipe behind me. And looking up there, there's clearly nothing up top there to be banging on it. Hope I caught that. That was pretty cool. Well, moving on. that banging on the stovepipe. Definitely didn't expect that, but pleasant surprise. I think we'll move on now to the main part of the fort, which is down that tunnel. Did you hear that? Listen again closely and you will hear, as I'm speaking, about to come out the door, another voice pop in through the middle of my sentence. I think we'll move on now to I could only venture as to guess as to what that voice was, but it was clearly not mine, and as you can all see, I was alone in the room at the time. Beforehand, let's get a look at this. The main interior of this fort. There's actually a very famous picture of this spot. I'm going to try to find to look it up and maybe impose it over this spot here. But there was a reenactment going on some time ago where they had all these reenacting soldiers standing out there in that very field. And set apart from the group was one translucent figure that was kind of unaccounted for, that nobody could really figure out who he was or where he was from. So it's one of the more famous pieces of paranormal history here at this fort. But let's move on into here. I gotta say, this room is giving me some odd feelings when coming into here so far. Particularly this one. This one and one other. I'm not entirely sure what this room is for. It's a big open one though. We had this picnic table sitting in the middle here. What's interesting to me is all of the clear signs around here that I think they do activities to try to communicate with whatever paranormal activity goes on in here. There's all kinds of burnt candles and it appears to be sage or maybe tobacco left as offerings inside of almost every one of these little openings. It's funny though, like everywhere inside here I go, I feel like I'm not alone. Interesting hearth. We kind of have them all over the place in here. Now, moving on. Little bridge. Yeah. So kind of as you go along, the ambiance gets a little spookier with every room you go in. It's very, very dark inside of this one. I don't think you can see it, but there's a stove of some sort right here at the end. These bunks are everywhere in here. this room. There we go. Some more little stoves, I guess. And it's kind of funny too. I've explored a lot of these forts this year, at least a half a dozen of them. Every single one has been completely overrun with birds. It's the first one I've been inside that's had absolutely none. It's very strange. So the starlings and purple martins and stuff tend to make homes out of these, along with bats. But I've seen not another single living thing inside of here. Stalactites. Signs of age. Although from what I understand, inside of these environments, because of what they used to make the walls and the bricks and stuff out of, the whole process of stalactites forming is actually much faster than normally would be. Hey, there you go. There's something living. Nice grass spider, I believe. Making funnels everywhere. Picked himself a good spot. Moving on though. We'll move down here into the largest room inside of this fort, casemate number 5. This room especially has a strange vibe to me. It almost reminds me of the feeling one would get from walking into a class that's already in session at school and having everybody in the room just turn and stare at you when you walk through the door. That's kind of what I feel like when I walk in here. And there, once again, we have more offerings. The remnants of candles. People clearly try to communicate with the dead here. Very cool. Very eerie. I like it. This is what I come and search for when I come to these places. All right. Since we looked inside of all these parts of the fort itself, perhaps now move over to one of the artillery areas where they store the powder and the munitions and stuff. So I was walking past this door, this where it's the outline of a person standing in here. Right here in the corner. Hold on, let me turn this around. Man, there's nothing here. It was standing right here. You can see it as I was going by. Where did he go? Interesting. Didn't notice this on my walkthrough before, but there's actually old writing scratched into the wall over here. Damn. Hopefully something pops up again. Heading over to the next spot. Let's have a look at how cool all this area is. The old buildings, the old cannons. Love this stuff. Feels like stepping into another time. So here we have a torpedo casemate. Another one of the dark enclosed areas here at Fort Mifflin. Very cool. So I suppose we have a room here where torpedoes were stored, loaded up. It's a much smaller section than the other part we were just in, inside the actual fort itself. Funny enough, I don't see all of the evidence of people doing rituals inside of this, like I did over on the other side. And also, funny enough, there's the evidence of bird habitation that we did not have in the other side of the building. I believe we will next move over to this building right in front of us. Definitely not what I was expecting inside. It's almost just a hollow foundation. Nothing but brick. Very neat nevertheless. All of the historic facts about the Revolutionary War. very quiet in here. Interestingly enough, we might see the culprit of why there. There's a little inside there. If you look over at that, you clearly see burnt remains. So a fire must have taken place in here at some point. Awesome. Now that we've checked this out, I think it's time we go over and check out the darkest spot that I found when I looked through here before. And here we are. This is the powder magazine, evidently. Where all of the gunpowder was stored. This particular spot has like no light inside. Come around the corner here to this big wide open room. Certainly still hear all of the airplanes above from in here, but man, is it dark in here. I walked through here before. I could swear when I stood still, I could hear footsteps walking along inside of here too. I don't know, maybe if we're lucky, I'll catch it on camera in here too. We will see if anything will give us an EVP. Is there anybody in here who would like to communicate? Anybody with anything to say? If there is anybody here, could you give me a sign of your presence? Well, not hearing anything or seeing anything with my naked eye. Hopefully something happened in the recording. You'll have to watch closely for this one this time. If you look closely and listen, you can hear something that sounds like a small pop, followed by a strange flash that briefly goes across the screen. Watch again. Here I managed to capture a still of the little light that flashed across the screen at the same time as the weird pop sound. I'm not sure what it is, but as I enhance the light on it, you can clearly see that there is something there. Could just be a speck of dust, could be an insect, or could be something else. I'm not really sure, but it was interesting nonetheless. Alright. Well, there you have it, folks. Sorry I didn't get more in depth with all the other things around here, but I got here kind of late. They're actually getting ready to kick me out right about now, so yeah, this has been cool. So until next time.